Tyler lay there, motionless, surrounded by the steady hum of machines. I gripped his thin, sun-kissed hand, my thumb gently brushing over the bruised skin. Under the harsh white light of the ICU ceiling, everything looked blurred, like a photo that hadn't quite focused. The doctor said he might still be able to hear, even if he couldn't respond. So I kept talking, told random stories, hummed the lullaby David used to sing every night when he was alive. And then the phone rang. "Tomorrow's Lindsay's birthday. Don't forget to come early and help with the setup." It was my mom, still the same, as if Tyler just had a mild cold. "I can't. Tyler's in critical condition." "Well, if you don't show up, don't expect any help from me anymore." I said nothing, just went silent and hung up. If you've ever had to choose between dignity and family, leave a comment, hit like, share this story, and follow the channel so you don't miss what comes next. I'm Emily, 36 years old, working as an academic coordinator at South Willamette High School in Eugene. After hours, I'm a full-time mom to Tyler, a 12-year-old boy who loves robots, devours sci-fi books, and furrows his brow exactly like his dad whenever he's deep in thought. I grew up in the southern suburbs of Portland, where lawns were trimmed in perfect lines, every curtain was the same pale cream, and emotions lived buried under coats of perfectly applied paint. My mother, Marlene, used to be the PTA director, the kind of woman who brought performance scorecards to family dinners. And if Lindsay, my younger sister, was the trophy in the living room, then I was the dusty photo tucked in a drawer no one opened. And I was always good with words, loved reading, obsessed with shooting on film, but Lindsay was the gem, playing piano at 4, winning the state gymnastics title at 8, and later graduating with honors in neuroscience from UCLA. I remember winning 3rd place in a statewide short story competition once. Mom only said, "What's writing going to get you, sweetheart?" Lindsay was already publishing research papers her freshman year. It probably sounded like a breeze to outsiders, but to me, still holding the certificate in my hands, it felt like a slap. My dad, Dennis, was the only one who ever saw me as my own person. Whenever Mom started in, he'd tap his coffee mug and say softly, "Marlene, Emily's not Lindsay's replica." But he said that at breakfast while she set the rest of my life. In high school, I quit competitive activities and joined the photo club, volunteered at the public library. I thought maybe Mom would see something different in me. But at the end of every semester, she'd ask only one thing. "Why isn't your GPA a 4.0? Things really shifted when I met David at 20. He was in logistics, studying engineering through an ROTC scholarship, and smiled like warmth itself. He never asked my SAT score. Never compared me to anyone. The first time I showed him my photos, David simply said, "You see beauty where most people miss it." We got married a year later. Mom came to the wedding in a gray silk dress, no blessings, just a sharp, "So you're planning to live off army meals now?" Dad quietly slipped me an envelope. "Whatever happens, I think you made the right choice." Tyler was born in a leaf-filled fall when I was 24, a baby with shining hazel eyes and thick brown curls, just like David's. I thought maybe having a child would soften Mom, but no. She came into our apartment, picked up every item in the nursery, adjusted things, and said, "This crib doesn't meet safety standards. Why are you using this formula? Do you even know how much sugar is in it?" I tolerated it, thinking that's just how grandmothers are. But when David died, during a final mission in Kuwait, her control had no limits. "You can't raise Tyler alone. Come live near me." When I refused, she started doing things like taking Tyler shopping for toys I couldn't afford. Then one day, he asked me, "Mom, Grandma said if Dad had a real job, we'd have a big house like Aunt Lindsay. Is that true?" I just looked at him, eyes stinging, and said slowly, "Your dad was as real and as honorable as they come." I don't tell Tyler much about the past. I've never asked Mom if she realizes the cracks in how she treats us. But the way she blindly adored Lindsay always made me feel like a guest in my own bloodline. And yet, in that ICU, with Tyler still unconscious from a brain injury, Mom was still more concerned with Lindsay's lavish lakefront birthday at Shasta, complete with a professional photographer and imported Italian wine. Just come for a few hours. Everyone's asking about you. My son was lying between life and death, and they were worried about centerpieces. I looked at him, his face still swollen from the accident, breath rising through tubes. I thought of the past, the parties I helped throw for Lindsay, the times I was called selfish for wanting to leave early to pick up my son. I didn't expect that saying no, just once, would feel like the first breath of freedom. David came into my life one October morning in the college library while I was trying to track down a label-less photography book. He stood behind me, pointed at the screen gently. Looking for the decisive moment? I returned that earlier today. I turned, saw that tilted smile, that ROTC hoodie, his amber eyes like campfire light. He spoke like time slowed every time it was his turn. We started like friendly strangers. Late-night study sessions in the engineering lab, sneaking into the student cafe after class. He studied mechanics. I lugged around cameras and film rolls. When he picked up a photo I'd taken of a deer stepping into the fog, he paused and said, "This one's you." "The deer?" I laughed. No. The way he'd stepped out, no apologies, no fear. Quiet but present. When I called Mom to tell her I was engaged, her first response was silence, the kind where you can hear someone sharpening disappointment in their head. "Emily, you just finished undergrad. What about the master's program? The Stanford Fellowship Professor Evans mentioned?" "I'm not passing that up. I'm just choosing a different path." With a soldier heading to war? There wasn't an answer that would satisfy her, because in her eyes, anything off script was a mistake. David's family was different. That first night I visited their home in Medford, his mom brought out slightly burnt roast and said, "Every time it comes out black, but David finishes his plate, so you can't complain." Everyone laughed, real laughter. No measuring, no grades. David held my hand under the table, his fingers lacing through mine. Solid, like everything he did. We married in his aunt's backyard, wooden tables, white chrysanthemums, a wedding cake baked by a classmate. Mom showed up on time in a silver gray dress, eyes fixed on her champagne. "You could have done better than this." I didn't reply. Dad, as always, waited till she looked away, then came to me and slipped me a thin envelope. "It's not much, but it's yours to start with." Tyler came into the world in our one-bedroom apartment in North Eugene when I was 24. He cried like he already knew this world wasn't kind, his hazel eyes wide open. David's eyes in a season that smelled like rain and pumpkin pie. David held him, his big hands nearly the size of our son's whole body. "Hello, future engineer," he whispered. I laughed through tears, joy that was soft but true. Those first years were hard but peaceful. David had training, deployments, we survived on long emails, 30-second videos just to hear Tyler giggle. I worked part-time, taught photography workshops, shot weddings and birthdays. Everything centered around Tyler. When David was killed during a mission in Kuwait, the knock on the door came from two young soldiers, their voices so stiff it felt like they'd scraped the edges off their words. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse like in the movies. I just nodded, closed the door, picked up my napping son, and sat silently in the dark until daylight seeped in. Marlene arrived the next morning. She stepped in, set her purse on the table, pulled out a chair. "You can't stay here forever. This environment isn't stable for Tyler. We need to find a house near a better school, near me." I had thought she came to hold me, but it turned out she came to redirect, as she'd done since I was in first grade. I declined, gently but firmly. I needed space for Tyler and me to get back on our feet. That's when she shifted tactics, buying Tyler expensive gifts, secretly planning weekend activities I'd reserved for him, posting photos of her precious grandson on Facebook while complaining I didn't let her see him enough. When I brought it up directly, she scoffed. "I'm helping you, Emily, or do you plan to raise your son alone, waitressing part-time for the rest of your life?" I didn't argue, just turned away. Every word she spoke carried a blade. I'd grown used to it. I didn't talk about David much with her. To her, he was just a strategically poor choice. But Tyler, he remembered his dad by the minute, and I guarded every memory for him. Photos, letters, videos, even the button-down David wore when picking him up from daycare. One night, when Tyler was 7, he sat next to me hugging his little robot and asked, "Mom, Grandma said if Dad had picked a different job, we'd have a big house by now. Is that true?" Got down my book and pulled him close. "Your dad made the right choice. You can be proud that he was brave." I didn't blame him for repeating her words. Kids absorb more than we realize, but from that moment on, I knew if I didn't set boundaries, every crack would spread from me to my son. And the first boundary I drew was the day I refused to leave his hospital bed to arrange flowers for Lindsay's birthday. I didn't know how my mom would react, but deep down, I was ready. That morning, the sky was clear as unwritten paper. The air crisp, the maple tree outside our balcony lit gold to its tips. Tyler skipped into the kitchen, his curls wild from sleeping in, clutching his cereal box, muttering something about a gyroscope. "Where are you headed today?" I asked, pouring milk into a glass. "Jake and Marcus invited me to the mini forest behind Washington Park. Jake's dad is driving. They'll pick me up at 9. Got your helmet and phone?" "Yeah. Want to double check?" He lifted his chin like I was some kind of traffic safety inspector. I pretended to inspect, then tousled his hair. Tyler was nearly shoulder height now, but the way he rolled his eyes whenever I mentioned timing hadn't changed since he was 8. Before leaving, he glanced back at me from the door, grinning sideways. "Don't forget the stuff for my robot project." I stuck the list on the fridge. "Be home by 3. Don't make me go hunting for lost hikers." He gave me a thumbs up and bolted toward the friends waiting by the car. I stood there for a while, coffee mug in hand, watching the car vanish past the row of houses. That was the last time I saw him ride a bike, with a smile on his face. The call came at 11:21, an unfamiliar number, a woman's voice, clear at first, then choked near the end. "We're transporting your son, Tyler Williams, to Peace Health, Sacred Heart." A car lost control and veered into the north bike path by the park forest. I don't remember much after that. Maybe I turned off the stove, locked the door, threw my wallet in my bag. I only remember flying through the Jefferson intersection while the light was still amber orange. My hands gripping the wheel so tightly, they ached. When I burst into the ER, a young nurse with a name tag that read Joanna motioned for me to sit. She said something about emergency surgery, Dr. McAllister, and critical intracranial bleeding. I didn't catch all of it. Just managed to ask, "Is he alive?" Joanna hesitated. "He sustained multiple injuries but was conscious at the scene. There's bleeding in the brain, a fractured left femur, and a few broken ribs. The doctors are doing everything they can." I sat there, no trembling, no crying, but my stomach twisted like someone had drained all my blood and left only the sound of machines. David once said, "If anything ever happens, stay calm. Tyler will need you steady." I'd laughed at that, thought he was being dramatic, but now, when the surgeon emerged after 6 grueling hours, I was the one shaking. "We've managed the hemorrhage," he said, his voice even, like reading from a report. "We're monitoring for swelling. He'll be transferred to the pediatric ICU, placed in a temporary coma to allow the brain to heal." My son, will he... We can't make guarantees. Young patients have strong resilience, but brain trauma is unpredictable. Tyler lay there surrounded by wires and machines, his eyes shut, one side of his head shaved, sensors taped to his wrists. I didn't approach right away. Something about the artificial breathing and beeping chilled me. The head nurse, Susan, gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "You can sit beside him, hold his hand, talk to him. We believe children can still hear." I pulled the folding chair closer. My fingers brushed his. They were colder than I'd expected. I leaned in and whispered, "Tyler, you're not leaving yet, are you?" The next sentence spilled out without thinking. "Your dad's still waiting on that flying robot, remember?" Don't make him wait. Night fell quickly, like someone flicked a switch. I stayed there. Susan brought me tea, said softly, "You don't have to hold it all together. You're his mom." I gave a thin smile, eyes burning but no tears. That's when my phone buzzed. The name made me pause. Mom. 3 days had passed since the accident, not a text, not a single call. I stepped out into the hallway, trying to leave the machine sounds behind. "I'm here," I said. "Lindsay's party is tomorrow. I need you back by 2 to help with flowers and greet the guests." Really, I thought I misheard, but the voice on the other end carried on like everything was normal. "Mom, Tyler's still unconscious. His brain's still swollen. The doctors say he's not stable." "Emily, what are you even doing there? The ICU staff handles everything. Lindsay's party won't plan itself." I leaned against the wall, heart pounding like drums. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying with my son." Her tone turned sharp, colder. "If you're going to abandon your family duties over some personal drama, don't expect any more help from me, including Tyler's college fund." I didn't reply. I just ended the call and powered off my phone. My hands were still trembling as I returned to the ICU, but when I saw Tyler, his pale face, his eyelids fluttering ever so slightly under the fluorescent lights, I knew I hadn't made the wrong choice. What I didn't expect was that this was just the first impact. That night, I fell asleep slumped in the recliner next to Tyler's bed, my neck aching, back stiff. Susan, the night nurse, gently draped a thin blanket over me and placed a warm cup of water on the side table. When I opened my eyes again, the lighting had softened to a pale amber. The machines still beeped steadily. Nothing had changed. Dr. Patel arrived around 8 a.m. He checked the vitals, exchanged a few words with the nurses, then turned to me. "Intracranial pressure is stable. Reflexes are still slow, but not worsening." When might he wake up? "I can't give a specific timeline, Emily. The brain needs time to heal itself. But he's being closely monitored." I nodded. Sometimes, no bad news is the best news. Around 10 o'clock, my dad showed up. He wore a faded denim jacket and last winter's scuffed-up boots. His face looked tight, but his eyes softened when he saw I hadn't left Tyler's side. "I brought some food," he said, handing over a paper bag. "Your mom didn't come with me." I didn't ask why. "She's busy organizing everything. Lindsay's birthday party is kind of a big deal. There's even a live band." I let out a dry chuckle. I wasn't sure if it was sarcasm or just sheer exhaustion. "I'm not leaving here, Dad. Not even for an hour." He sat down, fingers laced together, quiet for a moment. "Think your mother's reaction, it's fear. When something's out of her control, she panics by blaming." "I get it. But that didn't mean I forgave her. Not yet." By noon, Jake's family, Tyler's best friend, came to visit. His mom brought 3 changes of clothes, my laptop, and the small sketchbook Tyler used for robot designs. Jake stood by the door, face pale, eyes red-rimmed. "It's not your fault," I said, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze. "It was an accident. No one's to blame." Jake didn't say a word. He stared at Tyler for a moment, then placed a letter on the table and walked away without waiting for me to respond. I read it later, a few clumsy lines, the handwriting uneven and tilted. "Tyler, you have to wake up. We didn't finish the water blaster robot. Don't make me build it alone. It'll suck." I folded the note and tucked it into my bag. My hands looked steady on the outside, but deep down, something sharp twisted and burrowed deep. In the afternoon, some coworkers from my school dropped by. Miss Hannah, the science lab coordinator, placed a food bag on the table and handed me a card signed by the entire staff. "We've organized a meal rotation. You won't need to worry about cooking for the next few weeks," she said kindly. Smiled, weary. "You all are making me feel like I have a real extended family." "You deserve the support. Tyler's a great kid." As I walked them out, I paused in the hallway, noticing the sunlight had shifted to the far side of the building. My shadow stretched across the floor, thin and long, like someone else was standing in my place. When I returned, I found David's mom, Anna, sitting in the chair, holding Tyler's hand. Bill, my ex-father-in-law, stood by the door holding his familiar canvas bag. "We flew out this morning, booked the flight the moment we heard from Jake's mom," Anna said. I couldn't hold back my tears. "I didn't call because I didn't want to worry you. I thought I'd wait until there was more news." "Emily, we don't need a reason," she said, squeezing my hand. "Tyler's our grandson, and you're still our daughter." I couldn't speak, I just nodded. Any words at that moment would have crumbled. Late that night, I sat alone beside Tyler, still holding his hand like always. The warm bedside lamp cast a soft glow on his closed eyes. I told him about Grandma's walnut cookies, the ones he hated but never dared admit. I told him Jake was fixing the robot so he could test drive it when he got back, that Dr. Patel said his vitals were stable, that he was still the center of everything, even in silence. Suddenly my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Not my mom, not Lindsay. It was Richard, Lindsay's husband. I didn't answer. Then a text popped up. "Mom's very disappointed. Lindsay's upset. Guests keep asking. Just an hour, Emily. A little balance, that's all." I turned the phone off, dropped it in my bag, and sat quietly in the dark. The exhaustion wasn't physical anymore. It came from the bruises you can't see, the kind that keep getting pressed over and over again. Tyler stirred slightly. I held my breath. "Nothing, just muscle reflex." "Still," I whispered. "Take your time, baby. I'm right here." What I didn't expect was that the moment I'd have to finally face my entire family would come the very next morning. I was sitting by Tyler's bed, combing his hair gently with a plastic brush. The nurses had trimmed the remaining strands so neatly it looked like he was prepping for school, not lying motionless in intensive care. Nurse Kelly had just finished checking his vitals and adjusting the monitors. Now it was just me and the steady beeps filling the quiet. My mind buzzed from lack of sleep, but I clung to little tasks to stay grounded, checking the thermos temperature, folding the sheets, refilling the water cup Tyler liked. I did them not because I had to, but because if I didn't, I'd start thinking about everything out of my control. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, a flood of messages from my mom, Lindsay, Richard, even my cousin Ellie, who hadn't spoken to me properly in 2 years. Every message revolved around one thing. The party had started, and I was ruining the mood. I quietly turned off notifications. Phrases like, "family is everything, a small sacrifice," and "you've dampened the spirit," repeated like they were gospel, yet no one asked about Tyler. Not a word about my son lying there, breathing through a tube, unmoving for 5 days. I stepped out to use the restroom, trying to breathe something other than antiseptic. When I returned, I saw my mom and Lindsay standing just outside the ICU room. Both wore long coats, makeup done, hair sleek, perfume trailing behind them like a reminder of where they'd just come from, the lavish lakeside birthday party. My mom spoke first, her tone sharp as ever. "So, you finally stepped out, ready to talk like an adult?" I said nothing, just stood in front of the door, arms crossed. Lindsay offered a soft smile. "Everyone's been asking about you. I get it. Tyler's situation, it's serious, but no one's saying you have to abandon him. Just 1 hour, so the family knows you still care." I looked straight into her eyes, and in that moment, I saw what I had avoided for years. Lindsay wasn't cruel. She just didn't understand. She never had to choose between duty and love. Everything she ever needed had always been served at the table. "Tyler isn't awake. Every hour matters. I'm not leaving." Mom shook her head, laughing dryly. "You're overreacting. The doctors are taking care of him. Your presence won't change a thing." I heard something break inside me, but this time I didn't want to cry. Just a quiet coldness settling in. "What did you just say?" "We don't need to keep acting, Emily. We're all exhausted, and if you think this sulking will win people's sympathy, you're wrong." I let out a dry laugh and stepped back. "Tyler is my son. I don't need anyone's sympathy. But I do need people, if they want to be here, to respect me. If not, please leave. Lindsay jumped in. Don't take it so hard. Mom's just worried about you. No, she's worried about appearances. Because I didn't help arrange the flowers, take group photos, or wear a dress that matched the party colors. Suddenly, Mom's voice shifted, low and sharp. You're ungrateful. After all these years of support, financial and emotional, this is how you repay us? I wasn't angry anymore, just strangely light. I remember every dollar you gave, along with every reminder that I was incompetent, weak, unable to care for Tyler on my own. And if you think that money entitles you to pull me away from my son when he needs me most, you can keep it. She didn't respond, just stared at me, face clenched like she'd been slapped. Lindsay, now alarmed, took her hand and pulled her a step away. Fine, Mom said, voice trembling but firm. You've made your choice. Don't expect anyone to reach out again. I nodded. I don't expect anything anymore. I'm not coming back for anything either. They both turned and walked away. The sound of Lindsay's heels echoed down the polished hallway, fading around the corner. I went back into the ICU. Tyler was still there, his face unchanged. But I was not the same. I sat down and took his hand again. I'm here, baby. A faint twitch at the corner of his mouth. I couldn't tell if it was reflex or hope. But my heart skipped. I didn't realize that tiny motion would be the start of everything shifting. That night, Tyler still didn't open his eyes, but the brain activity monitor started showing faint fluctuations. Dr. Patel came earlier than usual with the latest scan results. He didn't promise anything, just said, his body is responding. We'll begin tapering off the sedatives and watch for spontaneous breathing. I nodded as if I understood every chart he mentioned, but really the only thing I heard was, there is still hope. I stayed, holding his hand as always. A new nurse, Lori, replaced Susan for the night shift. She spoke gently, her scrubs carrying the scent of detergent that reminded me of the old winter blankets at David's house, back when things were simpler. You should try to get some sleep, even a short nap. It's not that easy. Actually, just try. Even 30 minutes can keep someone from breaking. I nodded, but didn't move. Just leaned back, eyes on the heart monitor. Every beep, a quiet confirmation that he was still here. My phone lit up, a text from Dad. Mom just transferred full control of Tyler's college fund account. Seems your refusal to help Lindsay was too much for her. I wasn't surprised. Or even sad, just felt a clear kind of emptiness, like someone had silently cleaned out a closet without telling me. Later, I stepped out to grab a cup of coffee. When I came back to the ICU door, I saw a man standing outside Tyler's room. Shoulders slouched, face unfamiliar, but oddly recognizable. Richard. Father, are claiming to be your mother. What are you doing here? Vanessa's been crying a lot. Your mom had a headache all night. Can you ease up a little? I frowned. Ease up on who? Your family. Everyone's tense. What about me? No one's denying Tyler's situation, but you've shut down every attempt at peace. You're being too rigid, Emily. You always are. I didn't respond right away. My mind flashed to my son. Unmoving in bed, while this man worried about a ruined party and the hurt feelings of grown adults in party dresses. Tyler is fighting to survive. And you're standing here telling me I'm the problem? That's not what I meant. Things would be smoother if you didn't act like the world is against you. I laughed dryly. You know who used to say that? My mother. He took a small step back, maybe realizing he'd picked the wrong place, wrong time, and wrong person to lecture. You should go. And don't message me again unless you actually care about Tyler. I turned away, no more room for explanations or guilt. If you've ever been silenced because no one believed you, or blamed for speaking the truth, leave a comment. Share this story if you know someone who needs to hear it. That night, I finally napped for an hour in the break room. When I woke up, the lights had dimmed. I returned to Tyler's room just as Nurse Lori was checking reflexes. You should come in, she whispered. There's some movement in his hand. I rushed over, sat down, and took his hand, his fingers gently curled around mine, weak but intentional. Can you hear me, baby? No answer, just a slow blink. My breath caught. I didn't dare believe it, but then he furrowed his brow, like trying to break through a thick fog. Take your time. Mommy's right here. The nurse called Dr. Patel. While we waited, I leaned closer to his ear and talked about the robot, how Jake was holding on to his favorite toy, and the neighbor's cat still waiting for him to finish drawing on its snowy fur. When Dr. Patel came in, he checked Tyler's pupils, called his name, then gave a small smile. Here's a clear response. He's reacting to sound. Very promising. I'd never seen his eyes light up like that, not bright but quietly radiant, like someone who's witnessed hundreds of cases yet still believes every little sign is worth hoping for. After he left, I stayed by Tyler's side. The sky outside had turned pitch black. The light from the hallway cut across the floor like broken rulers. Tyler didn't open his eyes again that night, but I'd seen enough to believe. He was on his way back. The only question was, when he fully woke up, would I be ready to tell him everything that had happened? I thought that was the hardest part. But then another door opened, and I realized I had to protect my son from something else entirely. The next morning, Tyler was fully awake. No more vague twitches or faint reflexes. He opened his eyes, blinked a few times like stepping out of a heavy dream, then turned his head, scanning the room. When his eyes landed on me, I saw it, that mischievous glint I knew so well. A little foggy, but unmistakable. I held his hand so gently I feared a breath might break the moment. I'm here, I said. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry and weak. I placed a finger to his lips. Don't talk. They just took out the tube. Just look at me. Tyler glanced to the left, where Jake's robot model sat from the day before. I turned and picked it up, bringing it closer. His wrist moved slightly, like he wanted to grab it, but didn't have the strength yet. The robot's waiting for you to recalibrate the sensor, I said, smiling. Jake didn't dare touch it. His lips moved. I watched closely, then slowly read his lips. Did I lose my memory? I leaned in, eyes meeting his. What do you remember? Tyler closed his eyes for a few seconds, then opened them. A car, loud sound, strong wind, then darkness. I nodded. That's right. You were in an accident. But the doctors say you're recovering really well. I don't mention the coma or the uncertainty we'd faced. Not now. Dr. Patel came in shortly after, bringing with him the light of the first morning my son was truly awake. After a quick exam, he told me, if things keep progressing like this, he may be transferred out of the ICU within 3 days. I looked at Tyler. His hand was gently fidgeting with the edge of the blanket. He hadn't spoken out loud yet, but it was enough to see his will to come back was fully intact. Around noon, my mother showed up again. I spotted her at the end of the hallway, walking beside Lindsay. She carried a silver gift bag and moved like nothing had happened. I stood in the doorway, not out of anger, but clarity. You're here to see him? Of course, she replied, not a trace of regret in her face. I need to remind you, don't say anything stressful. He just woke up. I'm his grandmother, Emily, and I'm his mother. I stepped aside to let them in, but stayed close to Tyler's bed. He looked at them, visibly surprised. Hi, sweetheart, my mother said, her voice switching into that camera-ready sweetness. You had us so worried. Tyler nodded slightly, but didn't respond. Lindsay stepped forward, pulling out her phone. Want to take a quick photo? We'll send it to Grandpa and Grandma in Arizona. Tyler shook his head. I stepped in. He's probably tired. Maybe later. My mom set the gift bag on the table. I baked your favorite double chocolate cookies. I said nothing, just glanced at Tyler. He pressed his lips together and turned slightly away. I understood that signal. He wasn't ready to engage, and I wasn't going to push him. After they left, I returned to the bedside. Tired? Tyler gave a slight nod. I wiped his face gently with a warm cloth. You didn't want them here? He looked at me for a long moment, then signaled that he wanted to write. I placed the small whiteboard into his hands. The wobbly words appeared slowly. Was Grandma scold you for missing the birthday? I wasn't surprised. Kids notice everything. I didn't go because I was here. He added another line. Is she very mad? I hesitated. Maybe. But what matters is that you're safe. Tyler set the marker down, then mouthed, I know you chose me. I bowed my head and held his hand tighter. That evening, a nurse brought in a small dessert from the cafeteria. It wasn't his birthday, but it felt like a celebration. I placed a tiny candle on top, not lit, just for fun. Tyler looked at it, then slowly wrote, Second birthday. I nodded. Yeah. Your second birthday. We split the cake, soft and bland, but it felt sweeter than any chocolate I'd ever tasted. That night, after Tyler fell asleep, I stepped into the hallway and called my dad. I think it's time you told Mom. Things can't go back to the way they were. There was a long silence. I will, he said, but are you sure? I'm sure, because she didn't just hurt me. She tried to turn Tyler into another pawn. I hung up, staring at the warm light spilling from my son's room. I thought I had drawn the line, but the next day, my mother brought something I never expected her to use. I was folding Tyler's green hoodie when she walked in. No knock, no warning. She held a cream-colored envelope, her expression calm, like yesterday's confrontation hadn't happened. Before I could speak, she extended the envelope. We need to talk. I didn't take it. Say what you need to say. She placed the envelope on the side table and sat down with posture like she was in a school board meeting. Your father doesn't know about this. It's a legal document. I finalized the draft this morning. I glanced at the bold type. Notice of trust modification. You changed the scholarship fund? Not changed. Removed, she said, her voice flat as glass. Because you chose conflict over cooperation. Because you disrespected this family. I didn't respond right away. The room suddenly felt too bright. Every contour of her face looked carved with a knife. You honestly think Tyler should pay because his mom didn't decorate party balloons? Don't diminish it. You didn't just skip responsibilities. You publicly shamed your family. You deleted me from your phone, refused to attend your sister's birthday, and told everyone I was selfish. I didn't say anything. They figured it out themselves. I leaned back against the wall, keeping calm. And if you really believe money is the only way to secure your place in your grandson's life, then keep it. I won't let him be traded like a commodity anymore. Tyler is our blood, she snapped. You might hate me, but you don't have the right to sever his connection to his grandparents. Tyler was asleep. I raised a hand. Lower your voice. He just drifted off. She looked at him, her lips pressed into a thin line, then turned to me, and her gaze was no longer masked. If you want to raise him alone in that tiny apartment on a clerical salary, fine. But let me warn you, no one will shield you from the consequences of your own stubbornness. I walked over to the table, picked up the envelope, and tore it straight through. I don't need warnings because you've never faced consequences. I dropped the shredded pieces into the trash bin beside the IV stand. Each fluttered down like dust. But I knew the sound was loud enough for her to hear. The last thread had snapped. That afternoon, Dr. Patel came by to check Tyler's neurological reflexes. He could furrow his brow, wiggle his fingers, respond to short questions. Every small movement made my chest tighten with relief. If progress continues like this, the doctor said, he can likely transfer to the general recovery ward by the weekend. I bowed my head in thanks. There aren't enough words to express what it feels like when someone in authority tells you, your child is coming back. That evening, as Tyler managed a few spoonfuls of thin oatmeal, he suddenly asked, Are you mad at Grandma? I didn't answer immediately. I wiped his mouth, then sat back on the edge of the bed. I was disappointed, but mad not anymore. What did she say? She thinks I made the wrong choice, that I hurt her feelings. Because you stayed with me? I looked at him, his eyes serious beyond his years. I nodded. Yeah. but I don't regret it. Tyler bit his lip and whispered, I don't either. 4 days later, he was moved to a regular room. No more tangled wires, no more ventilator, just a bandage on his forehead and a cast on his left leg. Friends from school sent cards. Jake brought the robot model. Nurses from the ICU came to say goodbye. Dr. Patel gave him a wink. This one's got a skull harder than anyone's I've seen. Tyler laughed, a small, full sound. I turned away to hide my face, not from sadness, but from being too overwhelmed to keep it steady. While he napped that afternoon, I stepped into the hallway to answer a call from my dad. I'm sorry, he said. Your mom, she doesn't change easily. But I don't want to lose Tyler. You're not the one who needs to apologize, I replied, softening. I just want one thing. If you visit, come as his grandpa, not as someone who follows her. He was quiet for a moment, then said, I understand. And I believed him, but I also understood when someone's lived in a comfort zone for too long, they won't step out just because someone else says, it's time. That night, Tyler sat up for the first time in 2 weeks. I sat across from him, ready to help him eat. Mom, Tyler said, voice still hoarse, I want to talk to Grandma tomorrow. I looked at him, surprised. Are you sure? I don't want to be angry, but I also don't want to pretend. I nodded. Then I'll let you speak for yourself. I didn't expect the next day's meeting to be anything like what unfolded. That afternoon, Tyler chose the spot. He wanted to meet her in the small garden behind the hospital, where a long wooden bench sat between blooming lavender bushes. I propped a pillow behind his back, draped a light blanket over his legs, then stepped back, close enough to listen, far enough not to block the sunlight on his face. My mother arrived on time. Beige trench coat, hair neatly pinned, sunglasses dark as ever. She removed them when she saw Tyler, and for a brief second, something softened in her gaze, out of place with her polished exterior. Hello, sweetheart, she said gently. Tyler nodded, unsmiling. I want to talk. She sat on the far end of the bench, one arm's length away. She looked at him like she was trying to guess what a 6-year-old might say next. I know I'm not feeling great, Tyler began, looking straight at her, but I felt something wasn't right. She paused. Can you tell me more? I got hurt. Mom stayed with me the whole time. You didn't. Mom was sad, but you didn't say sorry. Then you said, if she didn't listen, I wouldn't go to college. I saw her hand twitch slightly, just enough to catch. Tyler, there are things adults have to handle differently. I'm not an adult, he said calmly, but I know when someone's punishing me just because they're mad at my mom. She said nothing for a few seconds. Maybe she hadn't expected a small boy to speak so plainly, or maybe, for the first time, she was hearing a voice that didn't flatter her or fear her. I'm sorry, she finally said, softer than usual. I let my emotions get in the way of my decisions, and I shouldn't have done that to you. Tyler tilted his head. Are you still going to take the scholarship away? I held my breath. Not because of the question, but because of the way he looked at her. Not defensive, just searching for the truth. No, she said quietly. I was wrong. Tyler nodded. Then, unexpectedly, he held out his hand. My mom stared at it for a moment before placing hers on top. Brief, undramatic. He let go right after, turned to me. Mom, I'm done. I wheeled him back to his room. My mother didn't follow. She stayed on the bench, looking down at her hand like it still held some trace of warmth. 3 days later, the hospital discharged him. I packed our things, double-checked Tyler's backpack. When I folded a get-well-soon card from his class, I noticed a small note tucked underneath, slanted, delicate handwriting. Just a few lines. Emily, if you're willing, I'd like to start over. Not with money. With who I really am. I didn't text her back. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into the pocket of my winter coat, one I didn't need just yet. Coming home, the one-bedroom apartment looked exactly the same. Tidy, quiet, sunlight slanting through the window, hitting the tiny crack in the wooden windowsill just right. Tyler climbed into bed, hugging his gray teddy bear. "Mom," he called just as I opened the milk carton. "What is it, honey?" I liked that garden, but we don't have one. I set the milk down and smiled softly. "We will, I promise." That night, after Tyler fell asleep, I opened my laptop and clicked into the folder titled Missed Projects. Old designs sat untouched, waiting. I hovered over the names: Mini Community Garden, Mobile Reading Corner, Free Summer Camp for Children of Single Mothers. I clicked on the third. I started drafting a funding proposal, not from family, but from organizations that believe in human worth, not status or last names. Anyone who's ever had to stand on their own would understand why this needed to exist. Just as I hit send on the first email, a message popped up from Dad. "Your mom just withdrew the request to alter the trust. She wants to wire money directly to Tyler outside of the board. I figured you'd want to know." I didn't reply. I wasn't sure I wanted to reopen that door. But then, the next morning, I got a call I never expected. Didn't expect the call to come from Lisa, an old college friend, the one who once sketched summer camp layouts with me on a napkin at a cafe. The first to say, "If women don't help each other, who will?" I recognized her voice instantly, still buzzing with energy like she'd just finished a run and downed 2 espressos. "Emily, I heard about your summer project for single moms. Is it true?" "Yeah, I'm just starting the proposal." "Perfect. I run a small nonprofit and we're looking for something like this to back. No promises, but if you've got 15 minutes, I'll get you in front of our board." I looked over at Tyler, curled up reading by the window, his knee still wrapped in gauze, but his eyes were calm. I turned back to the phone. "I can give you 15 hours, if that's what it takes." The pitch happened in a small conference room inside a community center in Tacoma, Washington. 6 people sat at the table, ranging in age. A gray-haired man asked about logistics. A woman in a hoodie and sneakers grilled me on practicality and budget. I didn't try to be perfect. I just told the truth. About moms like me, about kids who needed a summer where they could play and hear their name called for something other than illness. As I stepped out, Lisa followed. "They liked you," she said. "I think you're about to get an approval email." That night, I called Dad. He was quiet for a while as I spoke, then said, "Your mom won't fight this, and even if she tried, I wouldn't let her pull the same thing again." I didn't know what had changed in him, but I didn't press. "Have you thought about coming home?" he asked gently. "I don't think it's time," I said. "Okay, no rush," he replied, "but if you ever need someone to take Tyler to camp while you work." His voice trailed off, offering something he hadn't before. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. In July, the camp launched. 16 kids, 6 volunteers, a reclaimed basketball court turned summer haven. On day 1, Tyler wore brand new sneakers and sat on a green plastic chair, surrounded by laughter, flip-flops, and the hum of my old Bluetooth speaker. No more oxygen tubes. His steps were slow, but steady. When I handed him a junior helper badge, his face lit up. "Really, Mom? Really? Because you've been brave and because you know how to listen?" I looked around at all the young faces opening cookie boxes, sharing markers, reading aloud. In that moment, I realized some things we lose. Maybe we're not meant to get them back. Because we're building something better. 2 weeks later, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. The handwriting was still neat and precise, but the words weren't what I'd ever seen from her. "Emily, I don't know how to make this right. Not because you succeeded, but because you didn't collapse when I turned away. If you want a public apology, I will give it. And if you never want to hear my name again, I understand. The love is still there, even if I twisted it." I tucked the letter inside my project journal. I didn't tear it up. I didn't rush to reply. That night, I sat alone on the porch, watching the streetlights reflect faintly on the window pane. Maybe we'll mend things, maybe we won't. But I knew one thing. I'm not who I was. I'm the one raising a tent in an old concrete yard. I'm the one giving Tyler a real summer. I'm Emily, my son's mother, and the keeper of my own light. I don't know where you're listening from, your car, your bed, or maybe just a day where you needed a reminder to keep going. Tell me where you're listening from, and if you want more stories like this, make sure you follow the channel because the next one might be exactly what you're looking for. Emily's story isn't just about forgiveness or success. It's a reminder that sometimes healing means walking forward, even when no one walks with you. Pushed aside as a mother, she rebuilt a world not only for her son, but for other children who had been forgotten. Amid hurt and injustice, Emily didn't choose resentment, she chose action. In real life, maybe each of us has been an Emily in some way, quietly rising, starting over alone, and unexpectedly creating something better from what once fell apart.